I noticed my older sister continually started to feel upset and sometimes even depressed about my mom's condition. It really worried her. I wasn't really aware at the time how much it worried her and didn't really understand that extent and what it meant. But looking back now, I realize that this was kind of a serious issue. My sister tried to take care of me because my mother sometimes couldn't sometimes because she took naps a lot. I took my sister's care for me personally sometimes and thought she was being bossy. Even though I loved my sister, I often had trouble getting along with her sometimes due to her being bossy sometimes. But I realized when I got older that she was looking out for me. Me and my older sister often got into fights because she thought I was being a brat and how I misbehaved and sometimes she thought my mom spoiled me. When she got older, sometimes she would kick me and hit me when we got into fights when she got mad at me. I used to hate that. Even though when we got into a fight and she would hit me sometimes, I still loved her and we did a lot of fun things together. We built forts on the top of our garage and pretended it was a house. We often made huge elaborate forts in the living room with blankets and sheets. One time we even made the stairwell into a huge slide by using the mattresses off our beds. Boy, was that fun. My sister got worried about my mom. My mom's anxiety due to my mom's condition made my sister depressed, and this caused her to often hang out with people that weren't very good influence. And she eventually started making bad social choices as she turned into a teenager. When my sister's friends came over, I noticed they swore a lot, and I thought it was awesome. I thought it was funny. Like, I always swore as I got older. A lot of her friends also enjoyed my personality. I loved getting into a lot of mischief when I was a kid. I often went on the room. I often went on the roof. I used to often climb up onto the roof and hang out on the roof when I was bored. I sometimes dropped things like pennies down the chimney. Sometimes I snuck over to my neighbor's backyard to take showers. They had an outdoor shower. I used to love crawling along the rafters in the garage. It was very dangerous and I could have fallen very easily, but it was a lot of fun. When we went grocery shopping, I often hid in the aisles and covered myself up with paper towel rolls. When people came by down the aisle, I would jump out and scare the living crap out of them. It was awesome. I often loved to play practical jokes on my mom. I felt bad for what I did now, but I thought it was very funny then. I mainly did them because she often thought it was funny too, and she often called me a little rascal. One time I threw a whippersnapper in my mom's bedroom while she was sleeping, and it startled her awake. One time I put a balloon under my mom's car tire, and when she backed the car up, it popped, and she thought there was something more serious in her car. Sometimes while waiting in the car to leave to go to the house somewhere, I would often put the car into gear and put it in reverse, and the car would roll backwards down the driveway, and I would laugh. I knew when my mom would come out, she would notice the car was parked in a different spot, further away. When my mom walked out, she would get confused and then suddenly call me a little rascal. One time I tried to back the car up. One time when the car was running, I decided to back the car up. And I made a huge mistake. I didn't realize when you put the car in gear, when the car is running, it will actually idle and move forward. Well, the car idled and it crashed into the garage. I was scared when that happened, but I was lucky that the that I didn't get into too much trouble from it. Nonetheless, I didn't tamper with messing with the car again. I love to misbehave at school as well. I often popped potato chip bags during lunch, sat on the aisle floor on the school bus, blew spitballs using a straw during class, and often sang the Salt and Pepper song "Let's Talk About Sex" out loud during class. One time I snuck into the office during the class and manually rang the school bell system. All the students heard the bell ring in every classroom and cheered. They thought they were going to come home early. I got into a ton of trouble, but I didn't really care. One time I told my 4th grade class that I was going to go move to Michigan later that year. Everyone believed me. Once the day came, several months later, March 13th, the whole class was very sad, and they almost threw a farewell party, pretty much. Some students even wrote a goodbye note on the blackboard. One person even drew an electric bell for me. I was into electric bells. My best friend was sad, almost cried, and bought me a gift. The next day, when I came to class, I told everybody that I was kidding. I had a few other odd growing obsessions during this time in my life when I was 10 and in 4th grade. My interest in power lines went off and on. During times I was very interested in them, and I continued to build large power lines out of sticks around my house. They became more realistic and elaborate as I grew older. I even built a small-scale substation. I completely overcame my fear of seeing insulators up close, and I started actually getting interested in collecting them. My mom and I often went to antique shops to find glass insulators. We had a shelf and we grew a pretty good collection of glass insulators. Some of them were actually kind of rare and were worth money. It was fun going in the antique stores to find them. I often put some of the insulators on the power lines that I made. I made one power line that actually carried a live electric wire containing 120 volts to electrify and power a fort that I built out of tarp. I also got into electric bells. The bells at my school fascinated me, and I tried to make them at my house from scratch. I learned how to make an electromagnet by winding wire around a metal device such as a screw or nail. I was also interested in streetlights. Even though they used to creep me out when I was younger, I watched one turn on one time and I noticed how they changed colors. And I looked at it. It creeped me out, but I suddenly overcame the fear. And when the lights changed color as it warmed up, I thought it was fascinating. I built a Cobra head style streetlight in the backyard using a stick, and I lit it up using the 120 volt wiring. My neighbor next door were snobby people, and they were never nice to me. Even though I didn't consciously try to get back at them, even though I didn't consciously try to get back at them by ringing loud bells and shining bright lights by their house, it always bugged them, and now I think it was almost kind of a payback. I still wasn't really interested in making friends. I did become really close friends with this one girl named Kim. She was a person that gave me that thank you note when I lied about moving to Michigan. I started really enjoying her as a friend because she really made an effort to try to step out and really help me when I was struggling in school. I got upset in general, and I thought that I got upset in general in the classroom, and she went out of her way to try to be a good friend, and I thought that was nice. We started hanging out. We started to hang out every day. I used to go over her house and do fun and play and do fun stuff like ride bikes. She often comforted me when I was upset and gave me advice when I struggled. Sometimes when people were upset and say they didn't want people to comfort them, sometimes when people are upset and say they don't want people to comfort them, that doesn't always mean they truly don't need it. And that was the case for me. Even though I didn't make an effort to make lots of friends and socialize, I did socialize more. I did enjoy being around people at school and making them laugh. During lunch, I used to sing underwear commercial while the teacher was talking.